Have you ever thought about what impossible task you would undertake if you knew you couldn't fail? Perhaps there's a calling you feel deep within, a nudge from God encouraging you toward a purpose that seems unattainable. It could involve mending a relationship that has been a source of pain or chasing a dream you've held onto for years. Often, these desires come with a heavy dose of self-doubt. You might wonder, who am I to seek such things? What if I fail? But here's a truth to hold on to. God specializes in the impossible. He doesn't just want you to achieve greatness. He invites you to embrace what feels out of reach, not through your own strength, but through His. The dreams and relationships that seem broken or impossible are where God wants to show His might the most. When you confront the impossible, it's not a measure of your capabilities. It's a chance to depend on God's limitless power. Think about the pain you've endured, the hopes that have fallen short. What if these very struggles are where God wants to work miracles? It is during our deepest longings and sorrows that He gently says, I am with you. Trust me. So, what impossible wish stirs in your heart? What dream have you hesitated to bring to God because it seems too monumental? I encourage you to lay that dream at His feet now and trust that He can do far more than you imagine. Don't shy away from your deepest desires or let fear stifle your potential. This is the moment to step into faith, believing that God is actively preparing something extraordinary in your life. Sometimes we forget that God thrives in the realm of the impossible. C.S. Lewis once said that faith is the art of holding on to truths that your reason has previously accepted, even when your feelings change. He reminds us that faith flourishes not in certainty, but in the unknown. Are we willing to act on our belief in God when the circumstances seem too grand? The life of missionaries like Amy Carmichael shows what can happen when we trust God for the impossible. She faced many challenges, yet relied on God's strength. Like her, we too can begin to see that faith is ignited when we step beyond what we think we can achieve on our own. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your efforts just weren't enough? Did you turn to God in those moments? Or did you rely solely on your understanding? Lewis challenges us to examine our responses during trials. When God asks us to carry burdens that seem heavy, do we trust Him or do we falter? Jesus often urged His followers to look beyond their worries and trust in His greater purpose. The question isn't whether we believe God can do the impossible, but rather if we are prepared to act on that faith. Are we willing to relinquish our plans and embrace the unknown with steadfast faith? Consider the Roman centurion in Luke 7, who turned to Jesus to heal his servant, believing that a word was sufficient for Jesus to accomplish the miracle. Jesus marveled at the faith of this man. If Jesus were to look at our faith today, what would He see? Would He be impressed, or would He find it lacking? Reflect on this. If God answered every prayer you've uttered, how would your life change? Are you asking boldly, or are you limiting your own expectations? We often confine ourselves to what feels safe, foregoing what God can truly achieve in our lives. When the disciples faced a storm in Matthew 14, fear gripped them until they saw Jesus walking on the water. He called Peter to come to Him, and Peter stepped out, embodying faith. Yet, when he looked at the waves and let doubt creep in, he began to sink. How often do we reflect this in our lives? We start with faith, but falter as our circumstances become daunting. Every challenge we face is an opportunity to renew our trust in God. Remember, the baskets of leftovers after feeding the 5,000 were tangible reminders of God's provision, reassuring His disciples even after the miracle. So when you feel overwhelmed, consider whether you are measuring God's ability by your limitations. Embrace the unknown with faith, trusting that God holds the answers. Each trial can serve as a stepping stone to deeper faith. Ultimately, it's not about understanding every detail of the path ahead. It's about trusting the One who is guiding it. As you grapple with the storms of life, fix your eyes on Jesus, who transforms fear into faith. What impossible request are you willing to make today? Will you let the chaos amplify your faith instead of your fears? God doesn't need perfect conditions to work miracles. He needs your trust. Peter stepped into raging waters, focusing on Jesus rather than the storm. That's the essence of faith, vulnerability and trust, even when outcomes remain unclear. C.S. Lewis once noted that genuine faith isn't just about avoiding risks. It's about embracing the journey God has for us. So, will you take that step? Will you trust that God's plans surpass anything your mind can conceive? The heart of surrender lies not in relinquishing control, but in placing your fragile hopes into the hands of the Creator. What greater masterpiece does He intend to unfold in your life if you choose to surrender your plans? Let go of the familiar and step into the grandeur of what God has prepared for you. The path may be uncertain, but the journey with Him is where you will uncover the extraordinary.